Now, Rob, your firm GlobeScan executed this report on behalf of Siemens, and one of the things that really leapt out at me was the optimism gap, if you will, gap between where people see the current situation, the future, and where they see things wanting to go versus where they really expect them to go. Mm-hmm. What was your impression of that optimism gap?
Yeah, this is a bit of a surprise. One part of the surprise, first of all, how people view their cities today is very optimistic. Mm-hmm. Okay, when you ask them meaning the experts, these mm-hmm. expert respondents, how they view their cities managing their challenges in five so years, their level of optimism is still high, but it drops significantly. And it's probably linked to this, how they view the future as their cities evolve and make decisions. Mm-hmm. Because we asked the experts which choices across all areas of infrastructure, energy, transportation, or whatever, where do you think the city's going to go on this? And where do you think it should go? Mm-hmm. So mass transit versus individual cars, this kind of infrastructure for those, which way? And the experts say very heavily towards mass transit. That's mm-hmm. where we got it. That's what our city's going to emphasize. Mm-hmm. They say, but how much emphasis should there be? Way more. So if it's, I don't remember the data, if it's say 60% emphasis on mass transit is where it's going to be. Yep. And how much should it be? 80. So there's that kind of gap, and it runs throughout the report. Right. Across a lot of things, whether it's prevention versus cure, across energy, mm-hmm. say demand management versus building new capacity. Right. These kind of things. The experts predict where it's going to go. And you say, wow, that's great. That's the way the city's going to go. It should go that way. And you say, how far should it go? Further. Right. So there's that kind of tension. And maybe it's this gap that the experts are seeing between how far they think the city should go in some of these choices and where they think the city's going to go, being less, that maybe feeds a lowering of their own optimism, mm-hmm. that they say, I'd be more optimistic if I really thought that the cities were going to go the way I want them to go. Right. But they're not going to go that far. They're going in the right direction, right direction, but they're not going far enough.
It sounds as though there's an agreement on what the problems are and what the solutions are, but not a great faith in the political will to implement the solutions that everybody agrees on.
I think so. I think that's it. It's some things get in the way of going as far as the experts want. Mm-hmm. Upfront capital cost, if that's your critical decision factor, more mm-hmm. important than anything else, and green technology costs more than the not so green technology, then these guys are going to say, well, my city's just not going to get where I want it to go mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. because of that.
What other surprises jumped out at you in the report?
Nuclear. Mm-hmm. We asked people the choices between three different energy sources: mm-hmm. renewables, fossil fuels, and nuclear. And we were surprised that nuclear was trumped by fossil fuels. They predict more emphasis on fossil fuel use in energy generation in the future than on nuclear. And I thought that nuclear was going to have some kind of a renaissance because of its ability to address climate change. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But according to the people we talked to, it's decidedly no.
Do you figure that that's just a cost issue, first and foremost?
Cost, a huge time frame to put nuclear in. Mm-hmm. Nobody's really come up with a solution on managing the waste. Mm-hmm. Those are probably the three things that have kept nuclear down. And maybe they got some better ideas on fossil fuels. Is not just coal, mm-hmm. it's gas. Right. So use of gas, maybe one other area that they're really thinking more gas than coal. Okay. We didn't drill down any deeper than that to find out why.
Right. Okay. And I wanted to ask you about transportation too. Transportation was a huge theme. It seems like it is the number one bit of infrastructure that everyone agrees is tightly tied to sustainability. It's tightly tied to competitiveness. What did you hear in that transportation message that municipal politicians should be taking away?
That's a good one. The transportation surfaced on, when we talked about environment, transportation is a huge issue. Economic competitiveness, big.
Yeah.
So I think it also came up this way in our megacities work for Siemens several years ago in the biggest cities in the world, and it comes up far more important than water. And part of the rationale, I think, is that the water system works fairly well. It's invisible, and people are fairly satisfied. Transportation issues touch everybody. If you want to move, you got to get out there either in your car or in the public transit or whatever. And so it's a very high profile thing. And I think people are aware of the lost time, and the issues around making public transit more acceptable, more usable, and extending throughout to provide the city with enough service, adequate service.
Excellent.
So I don't know if that answered your question.
It does, for sure. Like you say, I think transportation is something that's just very present in people's lives. We're very, very aware of the lost time, the environmental damage, as you say.
Environmental damage, and the space it takes. It's a huge piece of everybody's day.
Excellent. Well, thank you.
From rich to poor.
Right. Well, thanks again for your time.
Yeah, pleasure.